Hey everyone, today I'm going to be talking about a bunch of ChatGPT and LLM hacks and tips and tricks that will help us as marketers get more traffic from them. SEO is, of course, still insanely valuable, but as this is the age of AI, we really need to be paying attention to this stuff, especially when we see stats like this saying AI search traffic converts 4.4 times better than organic search traffic. So yes, it's still a small portion of our traffic overall, but this will grow over time. So we need to be doing everything that we can to pay attention to this new direction things are moving in and try to optimize the traffic that we're getting from AI. This space is, of course, moving insanely fast right now, so I've tried to round up a bunch of the most useful tips and tricks that are working right now. And definitely be sure to watch to the end because I've got a bunch of free resources that'll help you guys out along the way, but I'll talk about this stuff later in the video. All right, let's get into it. So I'm Chris Jis, and I help businesses get found through SEO as well as full stack digital marketing solutions, but you can go to my website for more information about me or if you want to work together. And also be sure to sign up for my free mailing list where I send my exclusive insights to your inbox weekly and to get instant access to all these documents, which we're going to be talking about later in the video. And before we dive into all the tips and tricks, just one kind of cool news item about AI overviews, which I noticed yesterday when I was preparing for this video, actually. I noticed that AI overviews are actually not showing at the very top for some searches. It's not for all searches. It's a pretty low amount. But for example, here I typed in what are backlinks and it gives a dictionary term here. Then the people always ask section, and then the AI overview coming in third. I believe I noticed this with some other searches as well. For example, branded searches where it might actually have the website listed first. So yeah, it's still relatively a small amount of searches, but just something kind of cool that's been happening. I definitely don't think AI overviews are going away. I actually think the opposite of that. However, I think that as they get more data about how these are performing, maybe for certain types of searches, they'll appear later down the page. But for most informational stuff, it's of course just showing right at the top still. All right, so our first ChatGPT and LLM hack is to see the fan out searches and the RAG sources that it's pulling when it's searching for things. If you haven't heard of query fan out yet, it's basically when you type a search into ChatGPT or a bunch of the other LLMs, what it actually does is it will do multiple different searches in the background so that it can give you a very well-rounded answer and even try to anticipate some of your follow-up questions. Probably notice when you do a search on ChatGPT, the answers are very in-depth. They cover things from a bunch of different angles, and yeah, it gives you these next steps that it might think that you're looking for. So of course, for us as marketers, it's important for us to know what additional searches are being triggered because then we can learn how to better optimize our pages so that we can better appear in the answers that it's spitting out and maybe even get some links to our website in there. So I first saw this from Steve Toth. You can go ahead and give him a follow on LinkedIn if you want, and he's got a newsletter as well you could subscribe to. And a couple of weeks ago, he actually had a really cool post where he talked about how you can do some kind of technical stuff and extract some code to see these query fan out searches. If you subscribe to my mailing list, one of the documents I've got in there is exactly how to do this, taken from Steve. But I've just put together a nice little resource for you guys with some step-by-step instructions on how to do it. But that, of course, is a little too technical, so someone very smart went ahead and made a Chrome plugin that does it all for you, so you don't have to do any of this complex stuff. You could still do it the old way if you wanted to. There's probably some more useful information in these JSON files. If you're a really technical person, you really wanted to crawl through and try to understand what ChatGPT is doing. However, this new way is super simple, so let's go ahead and do that. All you have to do is get this Chrome plugin called ChatGPT Path. And I've actually updated my file to include the plugin as well. So after you've got the plugin installed in Chrome, go ahead and head over to ChatGPT and let's do a simple search like what are backlinks? So ChatGPT has spit out this pretty in-depth answer here. And then you can see down here at the bottom, I've got this little button. Let's go ahead and click that. I've actually got no search queries for this one because I made a big mistake. We'll go ahead and start a new chat. And what you need to do is make sure that you do search the web. This only works if ChatGPT is going to the web to pull up all these other sources. So let's just type in best way to build backlinks. Now it's searching the web, so it's actually going to work this time. Now when we click the button, it's going to go ahead and pull up these two different search queries that ChatGPT ran in the background. Best way to build backlinks 2025 and backlink building strategies. Then from that, it also gives this cool section, internal thoughts, which just explains what it thinks we're trying to accomplish with our search. Important stuff to know here. Lets you know if there were any tool calls, and then scrolling down here, RAG sources. These are all the different sources that it looked at to synthesize this answer. And you can see there are quite a bit of different sources here. So this is something you're definitely going to want to be using when you are trying to understand what ChatGPT is doing, what it's sourcing, and how to better get your brand or your website mentioned in any kind of answers that it's showing. Next up, we have a little hack on how ChatGPT chooses sites to crawl and cite. So just like we were looking at before, ChatGPT went and looked at all of these different websites, but how does it actually choose which ones to look at? And how does it choose which ones to put these little links in the content to? So this discovery was made by Jerome Solomon. You could check him out on LinkedIn as well and give him a follow if you wanted to. But what he found is that ChatGPT chooses to crawl on websites based on these things: the URL, the title, the snippet, usually the meta description, the ranking position, and the metadata. So URL and title are kind of a no-brainer. Just like in SEO, it's looking at things like the clickable title, your title tag. And it's not showing the full URL right here, but just like in SEO, the full URL with your on-page slug right here is very important to how these crawlers understand what your page is actually about. Ranking position and metadata are kind of interesting. Of course, if you're ranked higher, you have a better chance of getting put in the answers. And of course, fresh content is better than old content. But I think the most interesting thing here is that it actually looks at your meta description. So back on Google over here, we can see the meta descriptions are these texts that display under the title. And generally, SEOs would only really optimize for meta descriptions to try to increase click-through rate. They didn't really do anything for your rankings, and people have known that for quite a long time now. But now with the LLMs, we're actually seeing that it actually does look at the meta descriptions and that it can be important in how it's choosing if it wants to crawl your page or not. So yeah, optimize your meta descriptions, make sure your keywords are in there, maybe some related keywords. You can pay attention to these fan out searches to try to get some of that stuff in there as well. And if you've been neglecting your meta descriptions, maybe now's the time to put a little bit more energy into them. And lastly, remember that ChatGPT cites passages, not pages, meaning that they look at individual parts of the page, not the entire page. So like we saw over here, it picked up all these different sources, and it's not just using one source for all the information. It's taking little chunks out of each one of these sources to create this huge comprehensive answer. Next up, we're going to talk about how you can actually track your AI traffic in Google Analytics. I saw this for the first time on MacDiggity's channel. What we need to do is add some regex code to Google Analytics 4. It sounds technical, but it's not that hard. Let's walk through it real quick. Again, in the shared documents folder that you can get for subscribing to my mailing list, I've put together some concise instructions for you on how to do that, as well as the regex code that we're going to be copying and pasting into Google Analytics. And I'm just going to be doing this on my website, which actually has no SEO footprint because I just use my website for a work with me page. Essentially, it's kind of like a business card. But of course, I can't show you this on a client website. So following these instructions right here, going to reports, acquisition, traffic acquisition. Up at the top, we're going to hit add comparison, referral and affiliates traffic, check, hit apply. Then we're going to click add a filter, look for session, source, and medium, select match type, matches regex, enter dimension value. Then we're going to paste that thing in, hit apply. And you can see I'm not getting any traffic from ChatGPT right now. Then scrolling down here, you're going to click this and hit session, source, medium. And then everything would just show up right here. It'd say like ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, whatever. It would have them all listed and how much traffic you're getting from each one. And then for step 6 down here, following the exact same process, but on a different part of analytics, you can actually see what exact pages are getting traffic from AI. Next up, we have Ahrefs Brand Radar. So Ahrefs Brand Radar is just one option. There's a bunch of other services that are popping up that are doing pretty much the exact same thing, which is just trying to estimate how much traffic you're getting from different keywords from AI. And of course, this is important because you can try to better optimize for them or optimize for ones that you're not getting any traffic from that maybe your competitors are getting some traffic from. However, it looks like Ahrefs has actually locked all the AI stuff between a paywall. I'm not paying for it quite yet because I don't think it's super important to do, but if it is important to you, it might be worth unlocking these features. But as far as I know, there is not a completely free way to do this right now. So yes, it's paid. What they're doing is they're actually making synthetic searches. They're thinking of what they think people are searching for, and then they're getting data that way by manually going into ChatGPT and making the search happen and then collecting data. However, the problem with that is that when you are using ChatGPT or when anyone is using these LLMs, they don't exactly use them the same way that we use Google, which is to type in a keyword phrase. When people type something into the LLMs, a lot of the times they're using a lot more conversational type queries, very long tail. They might ramble a bunch. So the way that they're getting the data isn't exactly how searchers are actually searching for information on these tools. Anyway, something to keep in mind. Definitely keep an eye on this space for developments, maybe some low cost or cheaper tools as well. Next up, we have Listicles. I actually have a whole video dedicated to this on my channel. I believe it's this one right here, link building for LLMs. So you could check that out if you wanted, but we'll go ahead and recap it for you real quick. But while we're here, guys, if you're enjoying the content, go ahead and like the video and subscribe to my channel. I got a bunch more SEO, digital marketing, and AI stuff on the way. So what is a listicle? Let's go ahead and search best running shoes 2025. Here's an article on Runner's World, the best 12 running shoes of 2025. Then scrolling down, you can see it's just a list of their favorite shoes. And the list is generally in order. Maybe they give some pros and cons, but they usually will have a top pick, which they recommend. So why is this useful for AI and ChatGPT? Well, as you know, the LLMs like to take the consensus of everything. They like to look in a bunch of different places and to see if everyone is agreeing on something and saying the same thing. If everyone is saying the same thing about something, then they say this must be the answer, so that's the answer they give you. So what you can do with listicles is you can create listicles saying the best SEO consultants of 2025. I could list myself, Chris Jis, in the #1 spot. And then I could go put these listicles all around the internet and make ChatGPT think that since everyone is saying I'm the best SEO consultant, that I actually am the best SEO consultant. In some places you can distribute these listicles are on LinkedIn posts, on X, on Reddit, of course. Reddit is super important. Quora, on YouTube, because yes, AI is looking in your YouTube videos and getting data there. Actually cites YouTube quite a bit. Of course, on your own website. And then you can modify your link building strategies as well to create listicles when you are doing guest posts on other people's websites, as well as parasite SEO, which is basically a guest post, but on a more powerful website. Again, a bunch more information in this video on my channel. You can check that out. But just try to keep this idea in your head, right, of trying to manufacture consensus. What can you do to put out everywhere that your brand is the best for whatever? And listicles are, of course, a great way of doing that. Next up, we have other link building strategies. You get a bunch more info on my channel on this. I believe this video is going to be the one we're talking about now. But in essence, there are some other link building strategies we can be doing that are good for SEO now, and they're also good for LLMs and ChatGPT and helping getting your brand cited in there. First up, we have digital PR. Digital PR is one of the best ways to get super high authority backlinks. So yeah, of course, the LLMs love super high authority stuff. So digital PR is a great way to kind of boost your brand and boost its credibility and get cited in the LLMs. Then we have context wrapping. Again, more info on my channel on this one. I believe it's in this video again. Context wrapping is something you can do when you are building guest posts and link insertions to get additional information about your brand, additional brand mentions, which of course the LLMs like, in the content of the website other than just getting the link. So just for a quick example, let's say that for whatever reason you wanted to get a link in this article and you wanted to use this text right here. Your anchor text was just going to be daily trainer. Well, instead of just getting the backlink that says daily trainer, you could also put more context about your brand. So we could insert something like daily trainer, comma, recommended by top shoe expert Chris Jis. So daily trainer is still going to be the anchor text for our backlink, but then we're inserting into the article all this other stuff. We're getting my name in there, my brand name, and then we're saying I'm a top shoe expert. And you can actually make the context a lot longer than this as well. If the webmaster will allow it, you can even put more information about your brand, page you're linking to, why you should be listened to, and just really how you want your brand to be perceived in the LLMs. So context wrapping is a super powerful strategy. I'm probably using it on about between 30 to 50% of the links that I'm building for SEO clients now. And then lastly, I just put in foundational links real quick because whenever you're doing any kind of link building, yes, you want to get cited in the LLMs. Yes, you want all this other stuff, but just make sure you are following SEO basics as well, right? We can't forget normal SEO. So you can't skip stuff like foundational links, but yeah, more info on my channel on that. Next up, we have Omnipresence, which is something we've been talking about already. But really, we just want to be everywhere that the LLMs are citing information from. So this post from Tom Benatar is saying that Reddit is now the #2 most cited source in ChatGPT behind Wikipedia, which is pretty crazy. But of course, there are a lot more places that they're getting information from rather than just Reddit and Wikipedia. Like we saw in that query fan out search earlier, we really want to be everywhere. So you want to be on other websites, you want to be all over social media, you want to be on long form video. I've got 2 L's there. Awesome. You want to be on short form video. You want to be doing PPC campaigns, maybe some influencer marketing, getting other people's YouTube channels or other bloggers to talk about you. You could do guest features on other people's websites, kind of like a guest post, but more about your brand, more about you. You can be active in communities. Of course, Reddit is an example of a community, but other online forums in your niche could be very good as well. And I put email marketing down here at the bottom, and I don't think email marketing necessarily helps with ChatGPT and LLMs. However, it's still insanely powerful, and I think really no business should be neglecting collecting emails and then trying to use that as part of your digital marketing strategies. And this is really something I'm helping advise all my clients on now as well. Next up, we have topical authority. You've probably already heard this term by now. If you haven't, I would definitely look into it. But essentially what it is when you write a bunch of different content on your website, a bunch of different pages on your website covering the topic from all different angles, then Google will start to see you as an authority on the topic because obviously you know enough to write all this content about it, right? And it appears the LLMs like ChatGPT like this as well. Some people, when they do topical authority, I think they do it a little bit wrong. They just look for these general terms that are kind of related to their niche and just try to write everything. And you can do that. However, I would really recommend starting with things that are very closely related to the core purpose of your whole business. So just some quick examples for e-commerce, you could write an educational section about your product or service, how to use it. And you can use ChatGPT to help with this as well. So I went over to ChatGPT, I made this prompt, create blog post ideas for a strong educational section about my product, how to use it, or what alternatives exist, and anything else you can think of that would help educate clients about the type of product we carry. Product, stab-proof vests and clothing, body armor, but not necessarily bulletproof body armor. And you can see here that ChatGPT has given us a huge list of topics that we can write about. And these are all quite good. And they are very, very closely related to the product that we carry, which is stab-proof vests. So a lot of people, when they do this, they might instead write articles about different types of knives or something like that. And yes, knives are related to stab-proof vests. However, it's not really related to the core of your service. What's the difference between stab-proof and bulletproof? How to choose the right stab-proof vest for your role? What makes clothing stab resistant? How to properly wear and fit a stab-proof vest? You can see these are very tailored to our business. It actually makes a lot more sense for our business to be writing this content other than different types of knives or maybe knife crime statistics, which you could still write as well. But I definitely prefer to start with stuff that's very closely related to your service. And then for local, I like all the content that I'm writing to have both location and niche relevance. A lot of people, when they do local, let's say you're a plumber, they might just write some very generic stuff about plumbing, like how to fix your drain, something like that, which you can write as well. However, where I would prefer to start and what I think is a lot more important is when you write stuff that has a lot more to do with both your service, which is plumbing, and the location that you're in. So let's go over to ChatGPT and start a new search. So I said, give me 20 blog post ideas for my local plumbing company based in New York. The topic should be related to both my location, New York, and my industry, plumbing. So we have top 5 plumbing issues every New Yorker deals with, how to prepare your plumbing for a New York winter, the hidden costs of ignoring small leaks in New York City apartments, understanding New York City plumbing code. So you can see this makes a lot more sense for your local plumbing company to be writing this kind of stuff rather than how to get hair out of my drain. Google expects a certain thing and the LLMs expect a certain thing about a local company. And it's not that you're a huge educational resource about plumbing. It's that you are an expert on plumbing in your location and that you should be chosen in your location for these services. Keep in mind that a lot of this stuff might not have the super high search volumes that you have from the more general terms, but that's okay, right? Because as we know, these AI overviews are taking clicks anyways from all these informational searches. So these pure informational things aren't really worth as much anymore to you anyways. And even if you ranked for something like how to fix my drain, what are the chances that the person's going to also be in New York and will actually lead to a conversion? So we need to be thinking of things that will actually help the business. And that requires us to rethink how we're doing things and not just trying to get traffic because it looks good in Ahrefs. Like, yes, it's good for our traffic to be going up and you want to show clients that your traffic is going up and not down because it means you're doing a good job, right? But at the end of the day, we need to shift how we're doing things to a lot more conversion focus. I just saw this right now actually in Ahrefs. I don't think it was here yesterday. They're putting these AI references up here, Google AI overviews, ChatGPT, very interesting. Yeah, this could have made a lot of sense for the video I'm making right now. So it's kind of cool. They actually give you these numbers and then when you try to click them, they try to get you to buy the other plans I was talking about earlier, but still pretty interesting that they're rolling this out right on the main page when you look up a website. Actually, I'm pretty happy with this because you could just show clients, hey, it's going up or it's going down. You don't even have to pay for it unless you really wanted that extra data, but you can still keep track of things just by using these 2 important numbers right up here at the top. Next up, we have branded web mentions. Branded web mention is when someone's writing an article and they mention the brand just like they mentioned Google right here, but there's not a link to you. It's just a mention of your brand without the link. Why is this important? Well, it's important because with these LLMs, backlinks don't even necessarily matter as much. They just really like these brand mentions. If you're talked about everywhere, that's the most important thing to them. Here's a post by Corey talking about this. Mention building should be seen as just as important as link building. And then Tim, the CMO of Ahrefs, saying branded web mentions were a clear winner with a correlation of blah, 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 meaning that they're super important for getting cited in AI overviews and LLMs. So like I talked about before, doing context wrapping where you're getting these additional brand mentions when you're doing your link building, this can be a very good strategy to do, of course. But just like we were talking about before with these omnipresence strategies, you could really do this everywhere. You could do it all over Reddit, all over Quora, all over YouTube, different social media. Just get your brand mentioned everywhere. It doesn't have to be linked. Next up, you can ask ChatGPT what it knows about your brand. And of course, this is important because it's how they recommend you. It's what they say about you. So you want to make sure that you have web search turned on, and then we're going to ask a couple questions. What do you know about my brand, and what are the top brands in my industry? So I'll turn web search on and say, what do you know about my brand, Ahrefs? So you can see exactly what it knows about your brand and what it thinks are the most important things to know about your brand. And it's pretty comprehensive here. But the important thing that we're really noticing here is where it's citing. So you can see, you can scroll through all of these different things and seeing where it's getting all of this information from, right? Everything it knows about your brand, where is it learning from? You have to pay attention to all of this. We'll ask the follow-up, what are the top brands for my product? And then of course it's telling you all of the other high-ranked brands. But again, what we're really paying attention to is where it's getting all this information from, because that's how we know how we can control the narrative about our brand and about what it's being recommended. So there's probably hundreds of different sources here that it's pulled, and you could use that plugin I showed you earlier to see all of those. And now your job is to go through all of those sources and try to get mentioned in there. If you're not mentioned in a favorable way, you'd reach out to these people, these different websites or whatever. Just try to control the narrative about your brand and what are the best products in your industry that are being offered. And last up, we have something called vector embedding. Again, in my shared documents folder that you get when you subscribe to my email list, I've got this document in there for you. And it's just a deep dive on what vector embedding is and how you could potentially apply it to your content. But the TLDR is that vector embedding is a new way of writing your content that's a little bit different from how we were writing content for just Google and normal SEO before. Some of the important parts of vector embedding are semantic clarity, passage level completeness, factual verifiable statements, clear structure and formatting, and intent matching. Again, go ahead and read that document because there's a lot of stuff there. But something you really want to keep in mind about vector embedding is that we don't want to forget about humans. We don't want to forget about SEO and just only optimize for the LLMs. I saw that Mary Haynes had an article on this recently, and basically she said that she was doing some vector embedding for some articles and that the articles ended up ranking worse for SEO, which is of course not what you want to happen. Because yes, these LLMs are nice, and this does kind of seem like the way of the future. Things are moving in this direction. However, it's still relatively a small percentage of traffic that's coming to your websites that are coming from the LLMs right now. Yes, it's worth more. Yes, it's 4.4 times more valuable than Google SEO traffic, but it still makes up a very small portion of our traffic. So anyways, learn about vector embedding. Check out this deep dive here, and you can start optimizing some of your articles for the LLMs. But definitely do not forget about humans and regular SEO. We have to do things in a way that will be good for both of these systems. All right, guys, wrapping things up. Most of the things that we talked about today actually help regular SEO and getting cited in the LLM. So definitely something to keep in mind. We got to play both of these games. Got people talking about how old SEO is exactly like the new SEO. And there are a lot of things that are similar, but like Mary was showing, just because you optimize for LLMs, you can actually make your SEO stuff worse. So it's not exactly the same. There are some differences. We have to shift how we're thinking about these things. I had a nice quote from Cyrus Shepard over here. Yeah, what I don't want people to do is give up ranking. Get the traffic. I'm not hugely in love with the idea of that, and I disagree with the idea that the age of SEO is over. And what's important is that you do what makes you money now while you are still keeping an eye towards the future and starting to kill two birds with one stone whenever possible. And a lot of the things that we talked about helps you do just that, killing these two birds with one stone. I don't think I showed this document before, but I've got this one, link building, that works for Google and the LLMs. I've got all these different link building tactics, why they're good for LLMs, why they're good for Google, pricing, how to do them so that you can kill two birds with one stone and not waste your budget, right? So you're doing stuff for SEO now, and you're doing stuff for the LLMs of the future. So be sure to subscribe to my newsletter to get instant access to that. If you're enjoying the content, go ahead and give the video a like, give my channel a sub. It really helps me out a lot, guys. And if you're interested in working together, go ahead and head over to my website and let me know how I can help. All right, guys, see you next time. Bye-bye.